Hello and a huge warm welcome. My name is Lorraine Davies and I am the host of this summit, The Expansion, Unleash Your Infinite Potential and Reclaim the Power Within. I'm delighted to have the gorgeous Emma Starling with me today. Before we get into the big conversation and sharing her expertise with you, I'm just going to give you a little insight into who she is and her background. So Emma is a subconscious transformation expert, business mentor, author, and master trainer in emotional freedom technique and evolved energetics. She is also the founder of the Evolved Energetics Academy, a world-class energy work training and certification provider that empowers healers, coaches, and wellness professionals to spread their own healing ripple by focusing on education, embodiment, and evolution. Wow, that is powerful. As I was reading that, I was getting the full-blown goosebumps that show up for me. So obviously, today's topic, or the summit topic, is the expansion. And what I love about the work that you do is, as you said, it's this ripple effect, that as we work on our own kind of evolution, that it creates like a ripple effect amongst everybody that we work with. And everybody here is come because they're heart-led leaders. They are light workers, they're visionaries, they're conscious women. So they're ready to plug into this kind of next level of their expansion. And I would love to know, before we get into everything, I'd love to know a bit more about your journey and what has brought you to where you are today.
Excuse me. And right on cue, a lovely cough there. My journey has been so interesting because the very nutshell is that most of my life, from sort of early teens to about, let's have a think, mid-30s, I would say, was riddled with anxiety, depression, looking outside of myself because of not feeling good enough, right, in a nutshell. And then I discovered EFT and everything. And I mean, literally everything changed at that point. So I discovered it for kind of personal reasons, and then kind of had a holy cow moment and went, oh, actually something that works then, right? And then I immediately signed up to train in it and had another holy cow moment and went, oh, this is what I'm here to do. Okay, great. Had that huge realization where everything just slotted into place. And literally the last 10 years have just been a whirlwind ever since. And I can honestly say that if it wasn't for EFT, I don't even know, because it got so tense for me. I don't even know if we would be sat having this conversation. A, because if I was here, I wouldn't be in the right frame of mind, and B, at some points I was having thoughts that it might just be easier if I wasn't. That's how it gets sometimes for people. So yeah, EFT has changed and saved my life in the same vein.
So EFT is one of my absolute favorite modalities. So I am so thrilled to have you here. And I know there may be people here who have, a bit of experience. There may be some people here who are completely brand new to it. So if we were going to kind of bring it back to it, like in a nutshell, what exactly is EFT and what are the benefits of it?
Okay. So emotional freedom technique is, you've heard of acupuncture, right? So most people have heard of acupuncture. It's based on the same principles, that we've got these tiny little meridian points all the way through our bodies, and tapping on them does something when we're stressed, when we're thinking about things that are upsetting, or we're worried about things that are coming towards us, that we're not sure what's going to happen. Our bodies can go into a stress response. So we send out cortisol and adrenaline so that we can mobilize and do whatever we need to do. And tapping helps to stem that flow of cortisol and adrenaline while we're thinking about those things, or while we're in that sort of a situation. But it also sends out really calming hormones like serotonin and dopamine. So the body can regulate. It regulates the nervous system. It improves the immune function. It calms your brainwaves. So have you ever had that thing where you feel stressed about something, and then for a little while you just can't kind of think straight? You can't make a decision. You don't know what to do. You can't kind of get your yes or your no. That's because this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, it disengages when you're in a stress response. So as you tap, as you soothe, as you regulate, this reconnects your prefrontal cortex, your thinky brain, if you like. It comes back online. So not only can you then be really resourceful again and make good decisions, you can access all of your brain, your creativity, your intuition, all the rest of it. And so you kind of become whole again, regulated, if you like. And it's just brilliant because you can use it in the moment if you're stressed. You can use it if things that happened in the past keep coming back to haunt you and upset you or whatever. And you can use it if you're thinking about something in the future that is potentially stressing you. So it's a catch-all. I'm going to sneeze. Do excuse me 1 second.
Yes, okay, darling.
Yes. So that's how it works. So it calms the stress response, metabolizes the cortisol and adrenaline. And the really sneaky, amazing thing it does is, when you think about something in the past and it kind of gives you that jolt if it's upsetting and it's like, oh, that's not a nice feeling. That's because there's a little flash of a memory that goes off in your brain. And it's like tethered to your body, if you like, by a little neural pathway that kind of gives you that trigger in the body. While tapping, while thinking about that thing, it dissolves that neural pathway. So you can think about that thing again, but it doesn't trigger you in the same way. How amazing is that? Game changer.
So freaking amazing. And then this is where I just get so excited with talking to you, because it's got these, so it like ticks so many of the boxes in terms of how it can help with this expansion piece. Talking about the nervous system regulation, we can't possibly consider flourishing or thriving when we're in survival mode. Like, it's just not going to happen. So first and foremost, being able to soothe our nervous system, to be able to shift back into the rest and digest, rather than like the survival is key. But then how cool is that you can literally, like, it's like having a magic eraser and being able to go, yeah, I'm going to erase that neural pathway out. And I think, one of the things that I've experienced myself, and I know that my clients come across, is that that we're all here because we have this like burning knowing inside of us that like, I'm here to be and to experience so much more than I'm currently experiencing. Like, I know that that's what's possible for me. And often what can happen, I think, is we get into this, we're going and we're striving out there for that thing that we want, and then these limiting beliefs or these historical events or these these trauma things come back and they like bite you on the butt. and it has that, we have that moment where you're like, as you say, it's triggering that kind of moment for us. And obviously you can use EFT to change this. So in terms of this expansion piece and people wanting to use it for overcoming limiting beliefs, like, where do they start? Like, what's the first step in the process?
Gosh, that is a great question. So you can do it on a couple of different levels. And, I teach my students a really cool tool called the tabletop. So if you draw yourself a very technical table that I'm going to show you in a second, a bit like that.
I love it.
And tabletop is your main belief, like the main limiting belief. So for example, I don't know, I'm no good at learning, right? For example, we do this with my students. And for all the table legs, I get them to write down the evidence of how you know that's true. So all the things that have happened in your past or present, whatever, or things that people have said to you, right? Because it's not just our beliefs, is it? It's things that we get given or thrust upon us as well, that tells us that that's true. And then we use tapping to shake those table legs, if you like, so the table collapses, and then you can rebuild a new belief. But it's quite cerebral. And so the more I work with people these days, this is where evolved energetics comes in, is that I'm very much about the energetics of it. So not just the mind piece. So I use a lot of visualization, a lot of color, and I have people run like a mini movie in their mind to see, playing out. So if somebody said to me, for example, I'm never going to make a success of this business, let's say. It's a big old limiting belief and it's going to stop their expansion like a brick wall, right? So I would have them maybe visualize, or just if they don't visualize, just kind of imagine like a movie screen inside their mind and have them see it playing out, trying to make a go of it. And like maybe 3 months from now or 6 months from now, because your mind will tell you everything you need to know. The mind and the body never lie. And so when you do that, you can then feel into the body what's happening in that picture. What are all the the things that are coming up, why, you know. So it's just like writing it on a piece of paper, you can physically feel it as well. And then we'll kind of do some clearing and the tapping appropriately. But then also I get them to go back into the picture and find the feeling that they want, because why do we want expansion in the first place? With everything, I always zoom out and I go, okay, so what is expansion to you? What does it mean? What is the goal of it? And how are you going to feel? Because expansion really isn't necessarily a feeling, is it? It's a state, it's like an energy. But so what is that expansion going to give you? Okay, well, I'll feel free. Maybe I'll feel like I can trust myself for the first time ever, right? Maybe I'll feel worthy finally. These big things, these are the big things, like in The Big Leap with Gay Hendricks, you know, that he talks about upper limit problems. These are the big things that hold us back. The other symptomatic stuff is just the symptoms that you can clear. But unless and until we deal with this big stuff, we're going to keep bumping into these blocks. And so by a process of elimination, we get the left and the right of the brain working together. We do maybe visual stuff, color stuff, we bring it in, but then I have them feel that feeling that they want to feel in the body somewhere. We put a color to it, whatever that is meaningful to them. And then we expand it. We literally expand together. So we make it bigger. We make it fill the body. We push it out past the skin and into the energy field, fill up the cocoon. And then out past that and into the room, into the house. And you can use the same approach if you're trying to attract clients, right? It's all magnetism, because at the very nutshell, who you're being while you're doing is everything.
Literally that. And when you talk about this piece, you know, something that I really kind of like want to draw out and highlight is that, you know, when I first came across EFT, it was quite a brain thing for me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I get the science of it, I get why I would tap and say these things, but what you've just said there about kind of your approach with the evolved energetics and this feeling piece is so freaking fundamental. Because ultimately, when we think about expansion, if we think about the goals that we're wanting to achieve, it's never really truly about having that thing. It's about how we believe that having that thing will make us feel. So when we start to use our feelings in this energetic process, through the tapping process, when we really truly choose to connect with them, that's when we're really stepping into our power and our own magnetism. So I love that. I love this idea of, and the analogy you just shared with, you know, like with the table, and you can kind of, and the wobbly, you know, like breaking the legs down, because I think sometimes when people come to do this work, and I've seen it before, when, you know, people are actually avoiding the work, and they're avoiding the work because sometimes it can feel like that belief or that thing that feels so challenging is so big. Yeah. And that's why we don't start, because it's just like, well, where do we even start with that? Like, what's the first step? So to be able to understand, it's like, it's dismantling it like a bit at a time. It's okay. And actually, so every little bit of work that you're doing to dismantle that belief, every time you go and tap on it, that you do these kind of practices, you are always moving forward, and every baby step of that is having an impact.
Yeah.
So powerful.
And I think as well, it's really important to presence the fact that our self-judgment. So in AFT training, I don't know how far your training has gone, or experience with it has gone, but when I train my students anyway, I talk about the outer casing. So you can be really good at sniffing out the root of the problem. You can identify all the symptoms and all the beliefs and all the evidence and everything else, and you can identify it in your body, blah, blah, blah. If you don't tackle the judgment piece, the self-judgment, how do I feel about even feeling this way? That's like the barrier around the outside, because somebody might go, right, okay, let's see, if somebody had a marriage that's dissolving, right? And we were tapping on that as an issue. If we don't approach that layer that says, I feel pathetic, or I feel, I don't know, I feel...
For me, it was shame and guilt. Right, when my marriage went apart, that's the bit I had to do the most work on.
Shame is insidious and it gets under the skin of everything. So if we don't deal with that outer casing of emotion as to how I really feel, there is a layer that people will not go past. So we've got all the symptoms, we've got all the stuff that they're, the symptomatic stuff of being busy, making lists, arguments with people, blah, blah, all these things that are on a surface level. And then you've got like a layer of self-talk that people say to each other that, oh, I just can't get my stuff together. I'm rubbish at this, and oh, they did this to me, or it's not fair, whatever that is. Then there's this layer of, I don't want to feel it. I do not want to feel that, because if I pop the top off that, it's never going to stop. And that's where it doesn't feel safe to go, right? I don't feel safe sitting in my emotions. So I deal with a lot of the cerebral stuff first, hence the tabletop. And then when they start feeling safer to be in their bodies and to actually presence and voice the fact that I just feel unworthy at a really deep level. And that's why I keep not putting myself out there, marketing myself, for example. Unless and until they can start sitting with those feelings, you're never going to get anywhere. So safety is literally at the core of everything I do, but you have to go so steadily. And so I think at all times, I see coaching and I see, modalities out there that kind of talk about a lot of things, and that's fine. And it's great. And it's all got its place. But if that reminds somebody of something that happened that made them feel unworthy for whatever reason, it's going to trigger them again, because the brain doesn't make a difference, right? So unless and until you're using somatic work with this kind of coaching and support and mentoring, you just treading water,
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Because for me, definitely, and the work you're sharing, the kind of work that you do, that was the game changer for me, because my personal development work for the first 3 to 5 years was very surface. It was surface level. And you're right, you can have that knowledge or that awareness piece of, oh, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is why I'm experiencing it. But until you choose to be really, truly accepting of the whole of it, the whole of you, all of those feelings, like they're I do a lot of work with parts work, and there are no bad parts, right? The feelings work. So it's until you're able to go there and to be able to sit with those feelings and know that they're not bad feelings. It's not, they are totally valid, and you are allowed to feel that way, and you're allowed to move through that. Like nothing changes. And I think this is where I definitely see, and you're probably the same, you as you say, you see people butting up against things again and again and again and again, and they're like, I keep having this problem. It's like, yes, because you're seeing the symptom and you're seeing the thing that's causing the symptom, but what you're not choosing to be doing is being not only accepting but forgiving yourself for that. So one of my favorite things, and I'm sure you use it in your practices, as like when I tap, sometimes I bring in Ho'oponopono. It comes into my like the forgiveness practice, because when you're experiencing those kind of emotions, like the shame, like the guilt, like those ones that can feel so freaking uncomfortable, to be able to do that from a space of radical self-acceptance, radical self-love, huge amounts of self-compassion, that's when we are then able to do this, to do the real work, isn't it?
You're gonna laugh at this, but I literally wrote down, I was refining some stuff this morning for my curriculum for the academy, and I wrote down radical self-compassion. It is one of the biggest game changers, because underneath that messy layer of, I don't want to feel this, it doesn't feel safe to go there, is, how long have I been alone with this? I've had to deal with this all my life, but whatever it is. And then the sadness comes out, the outpouring of sadness. And then once the sadness, because if you noticed how anger and resentment and all of that, it usually turns to sadness, doesn't it?
Yes. It's the first level. It's like the first, like, frustration, anger, resentment, bitterness. It's all up here. And then underneath it is it's the sadness, and sometimes it's, and as you put your put your finger on really nicely there as well, it's the loneliness piece. We live in a, you know, in a world, particularly if you are a business owner, if you look online and you're doing the comparisonitis and you're looking at everyone else and you're like, you know, they seem to have their shit together. They don't, by the way. They seem to have their shit. Nobody has their shit together. But they, you know, they've got, and you can feel like, you know, the way you're feeling about what's going on, or that, you know, these limiting beliefs that you've got going on, or these trigger, you know, keep being triggered by the same things over and over again. You can think that it's, you know, that you can't share this. I should be showing up. I should be showing up as my fully healed self. I should be showing up as, you know, this most expansive version of myself. And I think this is, as soon as we start shoulding on ourselves, we are literally putting like a ceiling on what we can and how we can grow. So I mean,
it's so powerful though, isn't it, when you get to that layer? Because when the sadness when you can reach that layer of sadness and sit in it and not shame yourself over it, that's when the compassion piece can come in. And it just, you know, that's where I see the biggest results with either my clients or students, is in their expansion. Because from compassion, you know, it's so beautiful, and then it's like, oh, it's not my fault, or, you know, whatever. Then your energy really opens up. Because to me, energy is two ways. It's either, no, don't give it to me because I'm not perfect yet, I don't deserve it, keep it away from me, universe is magnetic, right? Or it's actually, I forgive myself, you know, I give myself radical compassion. You open to receive, and we all know what happens in this universe when we open our energy to receive. The universe comes rushing in, whether that's money, love, time, sleep, whatever it is. You have to open first, and I don't believe you can get there without that self-compassion piece and the forgiveness.
And that, you know, it's, for me, I always think of it as well, it's kind of like it's lightening your load. You know, when we have all this bag, you know, we have the baggage of the conditioning and the self-belief, you know, the belief systems and all of that stuff, we're carrying that around in a bag. And then we've got over the other shoulder, we've got this, how we feel about it. And it's like we're carrying these two massive bags around, and we've got no capacity to receive anything else because we are literally like carrying too much already. I always love to think of this expansion piece is like, we have to do the letting go, right? So okay, I'm going to let go of this, I'm going to let go of this, you know, how these feelings. And as we do that, we literally create the space, not only in ourselves, like especially with the emotional freedom technique, you know, that's like creating literally space on us and an emotional in our body, because we know that we store our emotions in our body. So you're literally creating space in your body. Then the work you do also creates that space in the extra bodies, you know, our 7 bodies. It's creating all that space out into our energy field to be able to open yourself up to focus on the stuff that you want to really call in. So it's a non-negotiable piece. And I think, you know, that somebody used this term the other day, you know, like you can't spiritually bypass. You can't miss the sitting with all of this work, because and you know, I did this unintentionally to start with, because, you know, as I say, I fell into the first business I fell into was very much like, gotta be positive, you know, be forward focused and and it was very much that kind of energy. So initially there was a judgment attached for me if I felt the lower level emotions, and it took me time. And this is the thing I think for everybody watching, and I know Emma will agree, it's gonna be a process. It's not suddenly going to be like, and there's this expansion. And if you see people quantum leaping out there in the real world, that's because it's not actually a quantum leap in the inner work. They've done a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and then it's shown up out here. From that kind of space. Okay, so I'd love to talk a little bit about, you know, I could definitely talk to you about this for hours, but I'd love to talk a little bit about the technicalities of EFT, because I think something that I definitely came up for me when I first started using it for my own practice was like, oh my goodness, am I doing it right? Am I and I think that some people don't start because they're worried about, well, what if I do it wrong? Like, what if I program something into my brain that's not right? So if somebody's kind of going, well, this sounds intriguing, I can shift some belief systems. How can we get them started on this EFT journey in a really easy way?
I love that question for so many reasons. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into all of them, but it's the biggest question I get is, how do I know what to say? How do I know if I'm doing it right? You really can't do it wrong, because the thing with EFT is, as long as you, I mean, the meridians are what they are. The body is, I look at the body as it's a big meat suit with a load of circuits in it, right?
Yeah.
And when you tap on these points, it's like pressing buttons that send certain signals to the brain to say, you're safe, everything's fine. That is the nutshell of what we're doing. So in that respect, you could tap with no words at all. It wouldn't matter. The tapping is still doing what we call the heavy lifting, right? It's still stemming the cortisol and adrenaline. It's still sending out serotonin and dopamine. It's still slowing the brainwaves down, and it's still bringing you regulation. So if you use that as a baseline, you can't get it wrong. However, the really easy way to think about it, and I have a cheat sheet which I use with everybody, is if you think about when we're trying to move through everything, and should we do it? Do you want to do it with me? And I'll show you what I really basic one. So
I'm right up for that.
side of the hand I talk about is the resistance point. So when we think about changing things, part of it might not feel safe to the brain. So we just do this as a little, what we call a setup, just to kind of give our brains the chance to relax and go, all right, I'll see what you're talking about first before we make a judgment and put the wall up. So we do that first, and then we literally just tap around the main points. I start here, some people start here. It doesn't make any difference. And what I love to do with people is what we call constricted breathing technique, because it gives them that buy-in and they get that tangible evidence that it works in the physical. Shall I take you through it, what I do, just real quick?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. So if you play along, what I ask people to do is take a really big, deep breath, as big as they can. And then I have you grade that in terms of like, if 10 out of 10 is the biggest, deepest breath you could take, how big was that? And they might say it was a 6.
Yeah, I'd say mine was a 7.
Right. Okay. Pretty good. Right. So we'll start on the side of the hand and we'll just say, even though I have this constricted breath,
even though I have this constricted breath,
I want to feel safe and okay.
I want to feel safe and okay.
Even though I have this constricted breath,
even though I have this constricted breath,
I want to feel peaceful and calm.
I want to feel peaceful and calm.
Even though I have this constricted breath,
even though I have this constricted breath,
I want to feel safe and okay.
I want to feel safe and okay.
And then we're just really simply going to go around the point, starting at the eyebrow, saying this constricted breath. You can use 2 hands or 1. It doesn't matter which side. Yeah. This constricted breath.
This constricted breath.
You go to the outside of the eye, right on the corner, this constricted breath.
This constricted breath.
You go right under the pupil on the bony ridge, this constricted breath.
Constricted breath.
Yeah. And under the nose again, this constricted breath.
Constricted breath.
The crease of the chin in the middle, this constricted breath.
This constricted breath.
Just under your knobbly collarbone bits, this constricted breath.
Constricted breath.
And then we go on the bra line under the arms, either one side or both, this constricted breath.
This constricted breath.
And then I go all around the top and the back of the head with 4 fingers, because there's like 100 acupressure points all the way up there. This constricted breath.
This constricted breath.
And then we stop. And I'm going to ask you to take a big breath again. Okay, so nice big deep breath. Where would you say that is on the scale now?
Like a 9.
Right?
Yeah.
Even something as simple as that, you are literally telling the body and the mind, we're safe. It's okay. And you've just you were a 7, you're a 9 in 1 round. That's how effective and impactful, really simple, basic EFT can be. If we'd have gone around without any words, you would have still seen a shift. In 10 years of doing this, I've only ever had 1 person who was very cerebral, who said, I didn't feel anything. And there's a lot of reasons for that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a very, very simple way. So when you're doing it, it's telling the brain that you're calm, there's nothing that's going to hurt you, and you can relax and feel safe. Because underneath everything, that's the problem, right? We don't feel safe about something.
Yeah, absolutely. are so powerful. And I think what I love about this is that this knowledge is right here. You know, you can go back and you can rewatch this segment over and over and over and over again, and you know exactly what you can be saying. You know exactly what you can do. And as Emma said, there's no wrong way. And if you want to do it speaking out loud, if you want to do it in silence, like, either is absolutely beautiful and perfect. Just follow your intuition and just start. I think that would be my tip as far as the work with EFT goes, because I think, you know, you're right, Emma, like, very few people will get no kind of improvement. So if you know that every round you're doing there's going to be an improvement, for me it just becomes a complete no-brainer. It's like, well, why wouldn't I tap? You know, and I've used tapping for some of the most challenging things that I wanted to overcome. You know, we talked earlier about you know, going through a difficult relationship and things like that. You know, for shame and for guilt, I used that for tapping out, you know, coming out of my marriage and dealing with that, and it was the only thing that made a difference. That's why I was so passionate about having you here today to share these tools, share your wisdom with the world. So I know that we could talk about so many more things, but what I would really love to hear from you now is, you know, is there anything that we haven't yet explored today that you are being called to share with the collective?
Yeah, very much so. So over the last, I would say maybe 18 months, this core concept has become the kind of center of everything that I do. And again, you kind of have to zoom out to look at it, if that makes sense. So when you boil it down, right, in this life that we have, with these things and these things that we're on and everything coming at us, right, all the stress, we're not designed for this level of stress. We're designed, you know, like a wild animal, right? If you see a gazelle getting chased by a, I don't know, bison, whatever chases a gazelle, I don't know, lion, let's say, and maybe they get their ankle caught and then they struggle and they get away. They don't sit there for half an hour crying and ruminating about it. They shake it off, they metabolize it, and they're off and they're fine. We used to be able to do that by running away from the predator. But we have that many predators now coming at us all the time, constantly, from everywhere, that our average stress set point is ridiculously higher than it should be. And my belief is, and my experience is, that if we learned to what I call tolerate the contrast or embrace the contrast, you are like the calm in the storm, and it doesn't matter what's going on around you. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So these things coming at us, right? These things that cause us the stress, that make us get angry, that make us get stressed, upset, whatever. It's because it's a different vibration coming into our energy field, and it doesn't feel good at the base of everything. So we might be feeling happy, or we might be feeling content or blissful or whatever. And we've got this thing coming at us that triggers us in a certain way, and it's different to the vibration that we are resonating at the moment, and it causes a clash. It's dissonance. Okay, and that's all it is. The more we can learn to hold that dissonance in our energy field and still be fine, guess what? You become kind of bulletproof, because it's like, yeah, okay, this horrible thing is happening and it doesn't feel good, and I'm still fine. Right? That's the point of power. And too many people, in my experience, you know, I mean, I could talk forever on this, but there are a million ways that we get stuck in that hole. It's not fair. Life is awful. Blah, blah. And in a way, part of it is our biomechanical design, right? Some of it is down to that. But this is why daily tapping and energy work is so important. When you've got your conditioner on your hair, when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, when you're waiting for the tea to cook, tap without words, because that is bringing you further and further into your own channel. When you can sit back in your own channel, knowing that you're safe no matter what is coming at you, because you can hold it, that dissonance, you just, you know, from a personal point of view, I lost my best friend, my dog, at the end of March, and my dad died on the 1st of May. If it wasn't for all the energy work that I've been doing over the last 10 years, I'd still be in bed, like dribbling, you know, and not getting up in the morning, because they were my two best friends in the whole wide world. I'm not saying that I'm miraculously like okay all the time. I have my crying days, all these other things, but because I am so okay with holding that dissonance, you know, that grief as well as the okay feelings, I can hold it all together. And that's what makes me all right at the minute, you know.
And this is it's like such a powerful thing for us to talk about. And I love this, you know, I've been doing obviously quite a few interviews the last few days, and there's this much greater awareness and understanding of being able to hold, you have to be able to hold it all.
Yes.
Right, particularly when you are, you know, looking to be in a kind of a leadership role, a coach, a healer, any of these things, because ultimately, in order to be able to hold the good stuff, all the good stuff, you know, all the things you really, really want to, like, I love, you know, I remember thinking about this and talking to somebody about the fear of success, because I kind of think, you know, the fear of success is never really truly about success. It's what you think the consequences of your success will be, right? You know, like, or what you're gonna have to sacrifice, or what you're gonna, who you're gonna have to become, that you're gonna, how you're gonna change, all of these things. But one of the things that came up for me when I did some journaling and then some tapping around this was, oh my God, I don't want to get trolled. And and then that, right, you have that moment, you're like, oh my God, this is what I don't want to have. But actually, when you feel into it and you're like, yeah, but what you're doing is you're stopping yourself from having success because you don't want to be trolled. But if you could be radically okay and accepting and be able to hold that and know that that means nothing about you, it means whatever it does about them, but it doesn't have to change how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the impact you're creating, of how you feel about your being of service to the world, because you feel so safe in and of yourself, and you can hold that energy, then yes, that's where the expansion comes from. I get so ridiculously excited, and I feel like we could do another whole hour on this.
Just keep going all day. It would be fine.
We'll just keep going all day, you know, it's fine. We've got nothing else to do, it's fine. But what I would love to do, I want to say like a huge, massive thank you, Emma, for sharing your story, your expertise, your time, your energy with us today. If somebody's watching this, it's like, I want to know more about Emma. I want to go and experience what it is that she does, the work that she does, that, you know, go and play in her world. Where is the best point of contact? Like, where's the best place to come and find you?
Well, I built my business. I raised her on Facebook. So I have a lovely Facebook business page called Evolved Energetics. People used to know me as Inner Smile. That is my business name, but it's now called Evolved Energetics. And for nearly the last 8 years, in December, it'll be 8 years since I've been doing this for free. I do what's called the Daily Tap. So I go live on my Facebook page, and I stream into other places now too. And I pull a card from an oracle, a tarot, or an affirmation deck. We look at the message, but I get people to have a look at what's going on when they hear it, because they might get some resistance or whatever. And we do a bit of affirmation-based tapping, so they get to experience it. Because until you experience it, you don't know, right? You can look at it on a piece of paper all you want, but I get them to experience the tapping. They can experience me. If I'm for them, great. If not, that's fine. And that's where I do everything. You know, that is the basis of everything. If you want to know more about me, everything that's going on, come and join me on the Daily Tap. Today's card was amazing.
Oh my goodness. So there you go. There you have it, everybody. Thank you so much, Emma. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. If you're watching this and you want to connect with Emma, go find her on Facebook and go and watch the Daily Tap. And participate, not just watch, participate.
Please.
In the Daily
Yeah,
Tap.
and feel free to share too. Like, I'm not precious. Share it if you want to share it. Like, it's free. So
I love that. Thank you so much, my gorgeous soul. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for your time and energy. And I will speak with you all super soon. Bye-bye for now.
yeah.